Welcome to the deep dive. You send us sources, things you're curious about, and we dig in to pull out the key insights, basically get you up to speed fast.
And today we're tackling something I think pretty much everyone can relate to. Sticking with things. Building habits.
Exactly. We're looking at the science, the techniques for sustained effort. Our source material relates to The Power of Habit by Daisuke Toda.
Right, he's a Japanese software engineer, created a really popular habit tracking app, apparently has millions of users. And today we're drawing from a YouTube video that summarizes his book's key ideas.
Yeah, so our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why consistency is so hard. You start exercising or learning something new full of enthusiasm.
And then it just stops.
Right. We want to find those practical strategies backed by data from Toda's app users that can actually help build habits that last. Because, let's be honest, who hasn't been there?
Yeah.
That initial motivation just seems to evaporate.
Oh, absolutely. And the data Toda collected, it really puts a number on that feeling. He looked at about 20,000 users who started running. Okay. And, 94% of them quit within 30 days.
94%. Wow. In just a month.
In just 1 month.
Wow.
That really shows how tough establishing that running habit is.
Yeah, no kidding. Was it just running or?
No, it was pretty consistent across the board. Things like stretching, strength training, studying, even just going to the gym, same pattern. About 80 to 90% failure rate within that first 30 days.
Okay, so this really suggests that just pure willpower or setting those big New Year's resolutions, it's probably not the best strategy, is it?
Doesn't seem to be reliable, no. That initial burst just doesn't carry you through.
So what did Toda find? What makes the difference for that small percentage who do stick with it?
Well, that's what he looked into next. He surveyed a much bigger group, 57,000 people, and identified 3 core principles.
3 principles, okay.
And get this. Applying these principles led to an 8.23 times increase in people sustaining a habit for 30 days.
8 times.
Oh, okay.
That's huge. Okay, I need to know what these are. What's the first one?
The first principle is radically lower your goals.
Radically lower. Like, how low are we talking?
We're talking really, really low. The recommendation is to aim for just 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Seriously. But if I want to get, say, really fit, how is 5 minutes of strength training going to do anything? Doesn't that feel kind of pointless?
I get why you'd think that. It sounds counterintuitive. But the data was clear. 5 minutes of strength training had a 3.13 times higher continuation rate than starting with a full hour goal.
3 times higher just by aiming for 5 minutes instead of an hour.
Exactly. It seems the key is making that initial step feel incredibly easy, almost effortless. You avoid that feeling of being overwhelmed or failing right at the start.
Right, so it's less about the immediate impact of those 5 minutes and more about just starting, breaking down that initial resistance.
Precisely. Starting is often the hardest part. It's like a snowball effect. Once you actually begin, even if you only intended 5 minutes, you might find yourself doing more. But even if you don't, that tiny success builds momentum. It makes you feel capable, which fuels motivation to maybe do a bit more next time or the time after. It's about building that foundation.
So, establish the habit first, even a tiny version of it, then worry about scaling it up later. Makes sense. Okay, what's the second principle?
The second one is remember when you're ready to act.
Remember when you're ready to act. Okay, well, what does that mean exactly?
It's about timing. It means leveraging moments when you're already doing something else or about to transition between activities instead of trying to find a whole new slot in your day.
You piggyback onto an existing routine.
Exactly. You link the new habit to something you already do automatically.
Can you give an example?
Sure, like taking out the trash. If you're already walking out the door for work, grabbing the bag then is way easier than making a special trip later.
Right.
Or maybe reading on your commute instead of trying to force yourself to read for 30 minutes when you get home tired. You're already sitting there on the train or bus.
Okay, so it's about reducing friction, making it the path of least resistance by tying it to something you're doing anyway.
You got it. And the data supports this too. A survey of 4,000 people showed that linking new habits to existing routines led to about an 11% higher continuation rate.
11%.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as dramatic as the 8 times figure, but still significant over time. So what are good, ready-to-act moments?
Think about natural transition points in your day, right after you wake up maybe, before your shower, after dinner, before or after your commute.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all potential anchor points. You're already in motion, mentally or physically, so adding a small new task feels less disruptive.
And what about reminders? Like phone notifications, do they fit in here?
Absolutely crucial. The data showed using reminders led to a 4.47 times higher continuation rate.
Whoa, okay, that's a big jump again. Why are they so effective?
Well, life's distracting, right? You might fully intend to do your 5 minutes of exercise after work, but then you get caught up in something else, maybe checking emails or, just scrolling online.
Happens all the time.
A reminder just snaps you back. It puts the intended habit back at the front of your mind right when you plan to do it. Setting an alarm for the same time each day can also really help solidify it.
So like setting an alarm for 5:55 p.m. if I plan to do something at 6, just that little nudge.
Exactly that kind of thing. Okay, so we have start small and link it to routines using reminders. The third principle is maybe the toughest. Don't make exceptions.
Uh-oh. Yeah, this sounds like the hard part. No exceptions. Ever.
Well, the core idea is to fight that, just this once feeling. Skipping even one day, especially early on, makes it much, much easier to skip the next day. Your resolve kind of crumbles.
Yeah, I know that feeling. You miss one day of something you're doing consistently and suddenly it feels like the streak is broken and, hey, what's the point?
Exactly. It's a surprisingly powerful psychological effect. Toda's research actually suggested that doing something every single day, even if it's tiny, is often more effective for habit formation than doing longer sessions less frequently.
Like those mobile games trying to get you to log in every day.
That's a perfect analogy. It keeps the connection alive, keeps it part of your daily rhythm.
But what about genuinely difficult days? Like you're traveling or it's a major holiday or you're sick. Your routine is totally out the window.
Right, those days happen. And the principle isn't about being totally rigid to the point of absurdity.
Yeah.
The strategy for those days is do the absolute minimum.
Minimal. Like how
Oh.
minimum?
Like almost symbolic minimum. If your habit is 30 minutes of exercise, do 30 seconds. If it's reading a chapter, read one paragraph. If it's studying, solve one single problem.
30 seconds. One paragraph.
Yeah. The goal isn't the workout or the learning on that specific day. It's about not breaking the chain. It's like logging into that game just to keep your streak. You're telling your brain, I'm still doing this.
Okay, so it's about maintaining the psychological momentum, preventing that complete break. That makes a bit more sense than forcing a full session when it's just not feasible.
Exactly. And related to this idea of not breaking the chain, there's the 2-day rule.
The 2-day rule? Okay, what's this?
This one's interesting. The data showed that if someone skipped their habit for 2 days in a row, 83% of them just gave up completely.
83% after just 2 missed days.
Huh.
Wow, that's a critical point then.
It seems to be. So the rule is, if you do miss 2 consecutive days, you have to mentally reset your progress tracker back to 0.
Ouch. Reset to 0, that sounds harsh. Why?
It taps into loss aversion, that feeling of not wanting to lose something you've earned. By tracking consecutive days, you build up this streak, this sense of accomplishment.
Right, like my Duolingo streak I mentioned earlier. I didn't want to lose it.
Precisely. The thought of losing that progress becomes a motivator not to miss that second day. It's a psychological nudge to get back on track immediately.
Okay, I see. So missing one day is okay, life happens, but missing 2, that triggers the reset, which you really want to avoid. It's a kind of safety net with teeth.
Kind of, yeah. It balances acknowledging slip-ups are possible with reinforcing the importance of getting back quickly. Now, there was another interesting point in the material about why consistency can sometimes feel harder as adults.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Well, think about it. Many adults are super consistent with work, right? Meeting deadlines, showing up every day, but then applying that same consistency to, say, a new fitness goal feels incredibly difficult.
That is so true. I can pull an all-nighter for work if needed, but making myself go for a run 3 times a week consistently, much harder.
The difference, Toda suggests, often comes down to external structures and accountability. When you were younger, in school maybe, you had teachers, parents, maybe coaches, there were schedules, expectations, maybe grades or team pressure keeping you on track with studies or sports.
Right. Definite consequences if you didn't do the thing.
Exactly. As an adult, for your personal goals, those external pressures often disappear. Nobody's going to give you a bad mark if you skip the gym. It's all on you.
So we basically have to build our own structures using these kinds of techniques because the built-in ones aren't there anymore for our personal goals.
That's a great way to put it. We have to become our own accountability system.
Oh, hi.
But the good news, the encouraging part, is that if you do apply these techniques consistently,
Yeah.
the desired habit can eventually become automatic. It reaches a point where not doing it feels weird or even unpleasant.
Like brushing your teeth. You just do it and it feels off if you skip it.
Exactly like that. That's the long-term goal, for the habit to become so ingrained it takes more effort not to do it.
That would be nice. So the overall message is really about applying these deliberate strategies, especially when starting something new.
Yes, whether it's fitness, learning, writing, anything you want to be consistent with.
Okay, let's wrap this up with a quick recap. The big ideas are start ridiculously small, maybe just 5 minutes.
Right. Lower that initial barrier.
Then link the new habit to something you already do. Use reminders to prompt yourself.
Leverage those existing routines and fight distractions.
And critically, try really hard not to make exceptions. Maintain the chain, even if it's just a tiny action on tough days.
And remember that 2-day rule: don't let 2 consecutive days slip by without resetting, because that's a major danger zone.
And putting these together isn't just, wishful thinking.
Yeah.
The data showed it can make a massive difference, like over 8 times more likely to stick with something for a month.
A really significant difference, yeah. It shows these aren't just random tips. They're based on observed human behavior.
So here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Consider one area where you found it hard to be consistent. Which one of these ideas feels like something you could actually try, starting today?
Maybe it's a 5-minute rule? Or perhaps identifying one existing routine you could link a tiny new action to.
Yeah, what's one small thing you could attach to, say, your morning coffee or your commute? Just something to mull over.
Even picking just one of these principles and really committing to it could be the key to finally making that change stick.
Great insights. Thanks for diving deep with us today on sustained effort. We hope this gives you some practical tools to work with.